So, using my balloon, I'm going to show you a couple things, a couple really easy things. First of all, and I want you to say this out loud. Deep down, everybody knows this. You know the United States government can never run out of dollars, okay? Now, usually when I'm doing this face-to-face, that's when somebody gives me the, well, of course you can't, okay, yeah, they can just print money. You can't just print money. That'll cause inflation, right? That's what everybody says. And it's just not quite as simple as that. So, when the government spends money, let's say the dollar was just starting out, where'd they get it from? You know, did they tax the dollar into existence or borrow it for, hey, China, we need some U.S. dollars. We don't have any yet. The birth of U.S. dollars is the federal government spending them into existence. So, the balloon. Let's say every time I blow air into the balloon, that's the government spending money, okay? So here we go. The government says, you know, we need some stuff done, and we don't really have anything to offer the people in the private sector. Let's make some U.S. dollars, and we'll give it to them, and they can use that as their money, you know? So he's like, you know, I need the White House built. I need some roads and some employees to come work for me. Let's blow some money in. The workers will be like, I don't want your money. Why do they want the money? What gives the U.S. dollar value, you know? So the government has to think about it, like, how can we make them need our money? Well, you guessed it, taxes. Well, I don't know if you guessed it. Maybe you guessed it. All right, taxes. You know, death and taxes, the only two things that are certain in life, right? They impose a tax on all the people, and all of a sudden, you need the money or you're going to go to prison. So when the government offers the money for goods and services, you accept it, right? Federal taxes drive the U.S. dollar. You could change this, by the way. If you live in the UK or something, you can change it and say pounds, you know, and instead of Australia, the Australian dollar. This is true for any government that creates its own currency. Unlike Greece. Greece is different. That's why they had a debt crisis. They did not create the euro, so when they get into debt, they have to earn the money. They have to get their hands on it. They can't just print it. I hate that term. But anyway, you get the point. United States government can never run out of dollars. It spends as much as it wants, okay? So, again, I just went over one reason why the government taxes. So now a question I get a lot when I do this face-to-face is, well, if the government can just spend money, why do they tax? Well, I showed you one reason, because the tax makes you need the money, okay? They don't tax you because they need your money. They tax you so you need their money, right? Another reason, let's say the government spends and keeps spending. I want to clarify one thing. I did this one time face-to-face with a guy, and he just said, well, you're proving my point. Every time you blow in the balloon, you're causing inflation. He didn't really have an accent. I have no idea why I did that. But no, until the balloon gets we'll call this the sweet spot, right around here, okay? Until the balloon is full, it's not inflation, that's just growth. But every time I spend money into the economy, it's, you know, filling up the balloon. Full balloon, everybody's happy. Everybody's working, everybody's got money. But if I kept blowing the balloon up, I mean, this is a special balloon. It wouldn't pop. It would just, like, fill up my whole man van here, you know? You won't get to find out if I'm lying because I spend responsibly, okay? So, this is the sweet spot. Well, there's other ways also. I'm kind of, you know, usually I have a conversation face-to-face. This is different for me. There's other ways. If the balloon was the economy, there's 3 ways that money can get into the economy. The one I showed you is government spending. Another way is private investment. They can invest money into the economy. Another way is exports. If you sell goods produced in the United States to someone else in the world, then you get money, they get the stuff. There's also 3 ways that you can take air out of the balloon. One way is imports, when you buy stuff from the rest of the world. They get your money, you get their stuff. Another way is savings. If you buy a treasury bond, that money leaves the economy and it sits in a securities account at the Federal Reserve, and it's no longer, in the banking system. And the other way, taxes. But you can see what I'm not doing. If I'm the government, what am I not doing? Well, I'm not chasing down the dollars that are let out of the balloon. That's just stupid, right? I don't need a revenue. I create the money and can never run out of it. That's the second purpose of federal taxation, is to avoid inflation. Because if I kept spending without ever taking some out of the balloon, then I would get inflation. Okay. So that sounds a little weird, right? Right now, usually people are giving me that I'm bat-esque crazy. I can't cuss in my man van. Unless I'm actually driving. I break that rule. But they look at me like I'm crazy. This is what got my attention. When Steve Grumbine, when I watched a video of his, and he led right off with this, federal taxes don't fund federal spending. I was like, what is he talking about? Of course they do. Now, if you want to get real picky, you can say they offset it. Sure, because when you take some out, it makes room in the balloon for additional spending. I'll give you that. But it's not a dollar for dollar thing. You don't need to get your hands on the money before you can spend it. You and I do. If you want to buy a house or a car, you have to have the money, or you have to get a loan. And if you don't have either of those happen, then you don't get the house or a car. By the way, if you're buying houses cash, we need to hang out. Dinner's on you. I would love to be able to do that. Anyway, so no, that's two purposes of federal taxation. Is to create demand for the dollar, domestic demand for the dollar, and to avoid inflation. What's the whole point of this? I mean, it's to change the question. Forget about your politics. I really don't care. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat. None of that matters. It's just about getting it right. You take driver's ed and you learn that the gas pedal's on the right and the brakes on the left, but you can still be a terrible driver. I'm not trying to tell you how to drive. I'm just telling you the gas is on the right, the brakes on the left. The government can always pay for it. So when there's questions about how are you going to pay for single-payer health care, how are you going to pay for a Green New Deal, how are you going to pay for it, how are you going to pay for it, the answer is always the same. You just pay for it, okay? In real life, it's actually easier than this. Congress approves the spending, and the dollar is keystroked into existence. The number in someone's bank account is moved up. You don't need to, be a rocket scientist to figure out that's really easy to do. So how are you going to pay for it? Is you just pay for it. The question isn't how are you going to pay for it, is there room in the balloon? That's pretty much it. And a lot of people, if you've taken economics, you're going to watch this and say, well, you're just oversimplifying everything. And of course I am. I'm oversimplifying. I'm using a balloon in a man van. I've said that like 4 times now already in this video. To explain something that's pretty complex. But the thing is, ordinary people need to understand how our monetary system works, so we can at least have the right conversations. Get on the same page, or at the very least in the same book, and then we can use the political choices after that. I just want to explain how the car works. Government spends, government taxes. Now, there is a lot more to it than that, but I've got to get home. So, let's have a discussion about this. Modern monetary theory, I'd highly recommend you look it up. Look up Stephanie Kelton, Warren Mosler, Bill Mitchell, Randall Wray. I mean, there's countless. I've spent 2 years reading this stuff, looking for a hole, and I haven't found one, okay? I think it's important that you at least give it a shot. All right, I'm out.